not sure if you've watched Bird Box, but I'm thinking that the people at Redcat Racing have watched Bird Box when they were developing the GEN8. So that must also be the reason why they decided to paint all of the windows. Now in this video I'm going to show you that you can actually take the paint off the windows if you want your truck to look a tiny bit different. And I think that the cool thing is that despite you not perhaps seeing my face the whole time, I'm doing everything blindfolded. Thanks for watching. In the last episode of the last video that I released, you may have seen me unbox this Redcat GEN8. Now you might wonder why it looks completely different right now from last time you've seen it. That's because I repainted it. You can actually repaint ready to run shells. So I will briefly explain you what I did in the process of painting this one or repainting this one. Now this truck comes completely painted, and when I say completely painted, I mean completely painted, so all the windows are also covered in orange paint. It's not really a big deal if you don't want to use an interior or if you're not like completely anal about looks, but I like to see inside my truck. I like to have an interior in there, so for me those windows, they just need to be clear. There's a couple of ways you can actually achieve that. One of them is cutting the windows out. I see a lot of people doing that. I'm not a fan, because once you start doing that, you also start sort of messing with the structural integrity of the body. This is a Lexan body. I mean, you're gonna make it pretty flimsy if you cut out all the windows. You can of course shoe glue some Lexan back in, but for me that's not really the preferred route to go. This is a very sharp body, so there's some really great detail going on in all the corners and all the shapes. So also those windows, they really nailed every shape of them. So that goes for the front, but also for the sides. It's really easy to feel those contours. Now another way to do it, for example, is brake fluid, brake cleaner, paint thinner. I've seen people messing around with a lot of chemicals. Also not a fan of it, because not only do you can make it really brittle. Nitro fuel I've seen people use. You can make the Lexan really brittle once you do that, but you can also cloud it up, and well, from there is basically no going back. It's not a big deal if you have like 10 bodies laying around, but in this case this truck is so fresh, there's no clear shells available just yet, so you just need to work with what you have if you do want to customize it. What I actually did, and the first stage of that, sorry but I didn't show you because I did it in the shower, is wet sanded it. So I started out with, I got all this shit still laying here on the table. I started out with this 600 grit paper, completely wet, so you let the shower run inside the shell. You only take like a tiny piece of paper, so I maybe take like half of this, just so I can see what I'm doing. Use plenty of water, and you just start sanding away. Don't go too far, because, well, just like with chemicals, if you go beyond what you actually need to strip, it's basically it's screwed up. So you want to be careful. Just take it like a tiny bit at a time. Once you have done it with the 600 grit, you proceed with the 1200 grit. You can even go to 1800, 2000, whatever you have. I had 600 and 1200, so that's what I used in my case. Then I used this cutting compound. If you don't have the same brand, it's not a big deal. This is regular cutting compound, medium coarseness, whatever you want to call that. So I know that Commandant also has a 7, which I believe is a bit more harsh to the body. I used the 4, worked pretty well, does cloud everything up pretty badly, but what you use then is polish. Now I use autoglym polish. I use this only for RC car bodies. I've had this bottle I think 5, 6, 7 years. If you want to remove some tiny scratches, this stuff is absolutely ideal. Also, if you have some road rash or whatnot, just use this. Don't use a Dremel, because using a Dremel with a polishing wheel, it will mess up your legs, and trust me. Try that as well, and it just doesn't work. So you just need to put some elbow grease in there. Do it by hand. I use paper towels or microfiber cloth to get most of it off. Now it can be really tempting afterwards to go and put some wax protection on there. You do want to do that eventually when you're completely done, but not in the process of. So this wax protection, this will actually sort of like keep your masking tape from sticking, and that's not something that you want to do. So once you've sanded everything, you want to make sure that you can sort of like see through it at some point. So I was halfway, so I had sanded everything, and then I peeled off the window stickers. You will see a close-up of that. Just so I could see through it, see if there was still some paint residue left that I needed to take off. Then I used the cutting compound and the buffing compound. That will give you a really good idea of where you are and if your Lexan is clear enough to start masking it up. It's really important to start masking and cutting the inside first. So you mask up your windows. You do want to make sure that you do that, because if you have any overspray sort of like clouding the inside of your shell, then you will end up with non-transparent windows again, and that's the last thing you want. So you mask those up first. Make sure that you have like a nice little bead going on, just to mimic like a glued bead or whatnot. You will see eventually what I mean by that if you aren't familiar with that technique. I like to stay away from the edge of what is going to be my window with approximately 4 millimeters, just to get like a nice edge in. That will also make sure that I have kind of like a guideline for the outside once I start masking the windows up over there. Now there's a majority of black going on here, so I also knew that that was going to be my first color. You always want to start with, if you repaint the body, with a black on the inside, just so you have that window bead. If you're not going to use any black on the outside, or not a lot, make sure that the entire rest of the outside of the body is masked up. Now in this case I had actually pretty much a lot of black going on the outside. So I have the, not just the stripes over the side, but also the entire roof, some window trim, the International Harvester logo that is on the hood, and plenty of other like little details. So I made sure that I masked absolutely everything that I cut, absolutely everything that I wanted to detail before I went ahead, pulled out a can of black, and I gave it a first coat. Once you do start painting, make sure that you get good coverage. So really get in there, put some light on it, make sure that it's non-transparent, because it's a lot of work to go back from where you are after you have finished one stage of the paint. In this case it's a tiny bit different. Usually once you, if you start painting a clear Lexan body, you build the layers up behind each other, and in this case, because you're painting the outside of the body, you're building them up on top of each other. So there is a bit of think work involved in getting that right. black was completely cured, I proceeded to those stripes on the sides. So I wanted to have that champagne anodized aluminum, just because that's one of my favorite colors, and mustard yellow. And I also wanted to put a Redcat Gen 8 logo on the top. I took those rally stripes off that it came with originally, and I did want to use that font just because it's so period correct. So I kind of redesigned some letters and made sure that it actually said Redcat Gen 8. Cut that out, put that on the roof of the car, just so I have like something more to look at once it is done. After all that stuff was cured, I did need to protect this, not just the roof and the hood, but also all those shut lines and the striping over the side. So I decided to paint all of that with a coat of flat clear. That flat clear, it is very robust, and it will make sure that your shell can withstand a tiny bit of abuse. Please do be aware that if you paint on the outside, that is of course more prone to damage, but I do think that it also looks very good. So everything has like its positives and its negatives, but well, actually putting that coat of flat clear on there will help a lot in making it more durable. After that, put all of the trim back on. So I actually put the mirrors back, put the grille piece back, put the taillights back, and started to look like a truck again. I also put some door handles on there from an Axial Jeep Cherokee. Also on the tailgate I put a door handle of an Axial Cherokee. I know that's not completely period correct, and the purists will probably want to kill me for doing that, but I think for now that actually it looks okay, because it just adds that tiny bit of detail that I was after. I also put some windshield wipers on there. These actually come from Trailfinder 2 Toyota. I think they'll look okay. The only thing that I'm still after is a fuel filler cap, so I want to put something over here just above that the back wheel, just so I have some extra detail in that panel as well. Next video, most likely I'll have an interior in here, some lights, have it completely buttoned up. But for now I think it also, it already looks a lot more individual than it was right out of the box. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button. If you have any questions, comments, hit me up in the box below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It's free. If you want to know more about Redcat Racing Gen 8, have a look in the video description box. I'll put a link there to Redcat Racing's website. And that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.